Sasso insecticide spray and coil.
Well, let's midweek. Good evening. Welcome. This is Ghana Tonight. We're live from News about Tadesa Wakanda, also live on TV3 Ghana on Facebook and on DSTV channel 279. We're all across the world on 3news.com. I'm Ofori-Atta US. Tonight, we have the latest for you regarding the court proceedings in the United States against former Finance Minister Kenneth Ofori-Atta. Also, how the coming days will look like, specifically regarding his bond or the bail application. There's some update to that as well. Also tonight, fewer people struggled with basic needs as 2025 progressed, signaling improved living conditions. We delve into the multi-dimensional poverty index report for the third quarter 2025, as was released by the Ghana Statistical Service earlier today. Stay with us. Also, we assess the recently signed deal between the Gold Board and the Gold Coast refinery. Well, and some benefits that have been outlined. There are some policy analysts who are pointing to areas that the Gold Board and essentially government should be also mindful of. Stay with us. As always, you're an integral part of the conversation. The hashtag we're using is Ghana Tonight on Facebook and on X. Connect with us. Let's get talking. Let's settle for Ghana Briefs.
The Minister for Finance, Dr. Kasiel Atoforsen, has revealed that he is exploring a proposal to allow the judiciary to retain and utilize 100% of its internally generated funds, IGF. This, he said, is part of effort to address urgent operational challenges within the justice delivery system. Dr. Forsen made the disclosure when the Chief Justice, Justice Paul Bafuboni, paid a courtesy call on him on Wednesday to discuss ways of strengthening collaboration between the judiciary and the executive arm of government. The Chief Justice explained that the visit was to formally express the judiciary's appreciation to the Ministry of Finance for its continued support. The Northern Regional Liaison Office of the National Security has arrested 45 foreign nationals in Tamale for alleged involvement in QNet-related recruitment and human trafficking activities. The suspects from Cote d'Ivoire, Burkina Faso and Liberia have been handed over to the Ghana Immigration Service for further investigations. The National Security Liaison Officer, RSM retired Adams Mohammed, has been providing some details about the exercise.
We realized most of them were lured into Ghana with the promise of taking them to Europe for other greener pastures. And some too were brought in to do these QNet activities and other related activities. We are not ruling out the issue of terrorism and that of economic migration. We've been instructed to hand them over to the Ghana Immigration Service for further engagement.
Government is giving a firm assurance that the price of cement will not increase as it has put in place adequate measures in the interest of the consumer. Speaking at the Government Accountability Series, Minister for Trade, Agribusiness and Industry, Elizabeth Ofoswejari, notes that ongoing dialogue has been activated between the Trade Ministry and key actors in the cement industry amid public speculation about a possible hike in prices. Ghana is making significant strides in the fight against poverty, with new data showing over 1 million people have moved out of multi-dimensional poverty in less than a year. According to the latest report from the Ghana Statistical Service, the number of people experiencing deprivation in health, education and living conditions dropped from 8.2 million in early 2024 to roughly 7 million by the third quarter of 2025, with employment as a major driver.
Households headed by the unemployed actually recorded the highest poverty, reaching 35.6% in quarter 3 of 2025 from 31.9% in quarter 2. So those who are not working, the poverty rates are very high. And we are talking about 35.6% in quarter 3. If you compare this to those who are in the private informal sector, they also recorded very high poverty rates.
Star Oil Limited has suspended its membership of the Chamber of Oil Marketing Companies, COMAC, a move that has heightened tensions within Ghana's downstream petroleum sector. In a statement issued on Wednesday, 21st January, the company described the decision as an indefinite suspension, saying it followed careful consideration. Star Oil said its membership had been based on expectations of fair representation and openness in differing views on policy and regulation. It added that recent development had undermined those principles, prompting a reassessment of its association with the chamber.
As more news on 3news.com. Make some time and visit 3news.com. This is Ghana Tonight. We're live on 3FM 92.7. Also on TV3 Ghana on Facebook and on DSTV channel 279. We're all across the world on 3news.com. As always, proudly brought to you by Flamingo Paint, Simply Superior, Sasso Insecticide Spray and Call, Tum Tum Preco. Coming up next here on Ghana Tonight, I'm going to just get you straight into some updates that have been rolling out at least over the last almost 24 hours now. All that has been playing out regarding the aftermath of Kenneth Nana Ofori-Atta's virtual court hearing yesterday, and when exactly this application for the bail or the bond application would be heard. We've been listening to one of his lawyers or a member of his legal team speak to the media. But before that, we do know that Sedina Tamaklo Atiunu, who was also, per the information that we got, picked up the same day. That's January 6th, the same day that Kenneth Ofori-Atta was also picked up, was to appear in court today. The details as to whether she also had a virtual hearing or not, we did not know. But when I spoke to Ambassador Victor Smith, this is the indication that he gave us regarding Sedina Tamaklo Atiunu's hearing, which as of 4 days ago, we knew is today. So far, we've been knocking on the doors of the US, that's the Ghana mission in the United States, Washington, D.C., for some information on this matter. As and when we do get it, we'll definitely let you know. But based on the earlier communication, Sedina Tamaklo Atiunu, the former Maslock boss, who was picked up by the U.S. Marshals as well on the same day, January 6th, as Ken Ofori-Atta was expected to be in court today. And this is what the court proceedings per Ambassador Victor Smith's own account was going to look like. Take a look.
Well, my information is that she's going to also go to a judge. I mean, per their procedures here, if you're picked up for any reason, you go before a judge. If you have some legal representation and you have a case to make, the judge will make that determination and then give his or her ruling to make a determination whether you have a case against the arrest, and if your lawyers can make a sufficient representation for the case to drag on. I'm not in the position to determine that one. You will just be put before a judge who will make a determination of how they progress. These security agencies act on instructions from the Department of Justice in the US. So when we do get requests like the extradition request, it comes through our embassy and is given to the Department of Justice for them to take their, to grant the request or to act on it. And I believe that when they are satisfied that they're going to probably grant the request, they would then instruct the appropriate agency to move in to make an arrest or to put the person in custody, pending, if you like, extradition being granted by a competent court of jurisdiction, of law. Sorry.
That's the indication of how Sedina Tamaklo's court appearance is expected to be. Well, as we did tell you earlier, per the communication, she is to appear in court today. The United States, we are 5 hours ahead of the US, so they're still in the most part of the day. We'll give you an update on how things played out in court, so as and when we get it. But based on the earlier information we got from Ambassador Victor Smith, this is why she was detained. That he says that he is reliably informed that acting on the extradition request sent to the U.S. authorities sometime in July 2024, Sedina Tamaklo was picked up by U.S. Marshals and placed in the detention center to await her day in court, which is today. So, per the information, Sedina Tamaklo specifically was picked up or arrested as a result of the extradition request by the Attorney General through the Ministry of Foreign Affairs and then also the U.S. Department of Justice working on this. So that's what we do know so far. This is where the detention center that Ambassador Victor Smith's communication earlier, she was being held. So we'll still be knocking on the doors and getting some more information on this matter. But that's what's for today. Yesterday, we do know that Ken Ofori-Atta, the former finance minister, also had a virtual hearing. We showed you some pictures of it. And then also there was that determination of whether or not the bail application that his lawyers were asking for, the bond, or as we call it here, this is the bail application, to determine whether or not he is eligible to be released from ICE detention. Now, as of last night, we did not know the court's decision on whether or not he had been granted that bond or bail. Well, earlier today, a member of his legal team, Frank Davis, spoke to Joy News. He had indicated that this has been adjourned to February 19. So the date when the court would hear this bond or bail application by Ken Ofori-Atta's lawyers to determine whether or not he will be released from the ICE detention so that he would now appear on the April 27th for the hearing of the substantive matter of his immigration issues with ICE will be determined on February 19th. So February 19th is the date to watch. So as we speak, Ken Ofori-Atta is still in ICE detention. Today is day 16th. That he's in the ICE, he's been in the ICE detention, and he's going to be there up until February 19, when the court will make a determination on this bond or the bail application that we heard of as of yesterday. But Frank Davis has been speaking. He says, look, Ken Ofori-Atta is not afraid of prosecution. He's going to come, whether through extradition or any other means. He spoke to Joy News earlier. Take a look.
It's not scared criminal prosecution. So those who are saying he should come in account, they should rest their voice. When it is appropriate for Ken to come, he will come. Whether by extradition or otherwise, he will come. And when he comes, he face the full throttle of the law. Nobody is shielding Ken. Nobody should have that conviction that anyone is shielding Ken. But Ken is supposed to have legal representation. And that is what we have as a Ghanaian. Nobody can take those legal rights of him. So those who are making all kinds of uncontrolled noise, I mean, to just advise themselves and listen to the faith. Kenneth, it's not scared criminal prosecution. So those who are saying he should come and account, They should rest their voice. When it is appropriate for Ken to come, he will come, whether by extradition.
So that's Frank David there. Say, yes, Kenneth Nanaya Okontonko Ofori-Atta is not afraid of accountability, or for that matter, standing trial. But this is why he's been wanted, at least for now, as per the special prosecutor's prosecution, which has already started. He's been charged with 28 counts, and we're going to put that on the screen right now, on this specific matter of the SML deal. The special prosecutor describes Ken Ofori-Atta as the mastermind behind this entire SML deal, charging him with 28 counts, Isaac Krenchel, 19, and you have Ernest Dakwa Kore, who is the chef de cabinet to Ken Ofori-Atta. He's also at large from what we do know. And then he's also 12 counts to answer for. And then the Member of Parliament for German South and the former Commissioner of the Customs Division of Ghana Revenue Authority, Kojo Damoa, having to answer for 8 counts. And the man with the highest is Emmanuel Kofi Nti, a former Commissioner General of the Ghana Revenue Authority, 39 counts he has to answer for. And Ivan Seduse is the CEO of SML, 19 counts. And Reverend Amishadai Owusu Amoa, former Commissioner General of the Ghana Revenue Authority, also having to answer for 10 counts. And then also the SML as an artificial human being, for that matter, also being asked to speak to or answer for 18 counts, for that matter. So here's what we do know. This is it, okay? But there are 5 main issues that the special prosecutor is asking Ken Ofori-Atta to come answer for. Apart from SML, there are 5 major issues that the special prosecutor is investigating Ken Ofori-Atta for. And these are the issues. Take a look at that. 1 is the Petroleum and Minerals Revenue Assurance contract between SML and GRA, which I just ran through. The second is the electricity contract termination. That's the ECG's agreement with Beijing BXC. That's also a matter that the special prosecutor is investigating Ken Ofori-Atta's involvement in. The third matter is the National Cathedral, the procurement and payment processes of the National Cathedral. The fourth issue, the ambulance deal, this contract that saw the procurement of some 307 ambulances by the Ministry of Health. So this matter as well, the special prosecutor is investigating Ken Ofori-Atta's involvement. And then the final one is the tax P fund by the GRA. It's looking at the handling and disbursement of the said tax fund account and the involvement of Ken Ofori-Atta, and then also the accounting for the funds, the disbursement of the funds in this tax fund by the Ghana Revenue Authority, for that matter, and in this sense, the finance minister at the time, Kenneth Nanaya Ofori-Atta. So here's the main issues that the special prosecutor is investigating Ken Ofori-Atta on, reason why he's needed to answer questions in this country. In fact, the basis for the extradition request, and then also the questions being asked of accountability of the former finance minister, for now, at least, are these 5. Already, we know that the Attorney General and Minister for Justice, Dr. Dominic Akuritenga Ayene, has indicated that there are other issues that he is investigating as well. Ken Ofori-Atta has been investigated on. You've heard the Economic and Organized Crime Office, EOCO, also say that they are looking into some other issues related to Ken Ofori-Atta. So there are multi-agency investigations going on, but the special prosecutor's own is what we know. Dr. Dominic Ayene has also been speaking to the media about his own observation of yesterday's court proceedings in the United States and his hope for the coming days. Take a look.
The American authorities are handling the process and they are handling it in accordance with American law. So far, I don't find anything wrong with what has taken place. As you rightly pointed out, I monitored the hearing yesterday, and I have had reports from the United States regarding what has happened and what may happen. But these are confidential discussions, and I'm not supposed to talk to the media about what they have briefed me on.
But yesterday, the trial judge said something. He said there's no proof of any extradition request and that it should be filed by the federal government before February 19. What's your own thoughts on that?
No, the Justice Department is working on the extradition request. Now, you have to understand that what is happening now is in relation to immigration immigration law violations. All right, that is separate and distinct from the extradition request. And so, if it was put in before the district, the immigration judge, that there's an extradition request, he wants a formal, filing before him. So the Justice Department would have to do that before a decision is taken.
When will that happen, based on your contact?
No, I don't control what happens with the Justice Department in the U.S. So,
but are you hopeful that this will go through for Ken to come back to Ghana?
I am very hopeful, extremely hopeful.
Oh, so that's Dr. Dominic Akuritinga Yene is extremely hopeful that the coming days will favor his cause and essentially the application for the extradition. Christian Mamhesi is private legal practitioner, was written quite extensively on extradition processes and its entire legal play out, and especially between Ghana and the US and the UK. He's joining us on Zoom right now. Counsel, good evening. Thank you for joining us here on Ghana Tonight. You had the Attorney General right there, taking into consideration what happened in court yesterday. Based on your knowledge of especially how the extradition requests are taken into consideration regarding matters of this nature, how do you expect the coming days to look like?
Yeah, hello. Good evening to you and your viewers alike. Indeed, the extradition procedures are progressing fairly good. And indeed, just as we have witnessed from the US and also, just as the learned Attorney General had also granted interview, he cannot do anything. Once the Justice Department sends the communique or puts out the legal input through the diplomatic channels through to the Justice Department for them also to apprehend the fugitive, for the fugitive to be put before a court of competent jurisdiction for proceedings to commence. The requesting country under the extradition treaty cannot control the affairs of that again. What it is that, and just as I had maintained at all times, in the peculiar situation as we have for Mr. Ofori-Atta, the immigration processes or the immigration legal proceedings as against the extradition proceedings are mutually exclusive of each other, and that the extradition proceedings will be dealt on based upon its own merit. Now, what it is that once we, unfortunately, Mr. Ken Ofori-Atta had issues with his immigration status, then it means that just as we are having to see all of these legal proceedings roll out, Mr. Ofori-Atta would have to answer for all of this. And indeed, if the ruling comes out sometime in April that Mr. Ofori-Atta is unsuccessful, then the legal outcome of it would mean that it will truncate the extradition procedures. And when I say it is going to truncate it, it would mean that a ruling which would be a deportation, which would cause for the deportation of Mr. Ofori-Atta, would definitely cause the truncation of the extradition procedures, because Mr. Ofori-Atta will not be available to be heard in that proceeding. So invariably, it will bring it to an end, and Mr. Ofori-Atta will be brought to Ghana to face the necessary legal charges that has been brought against him in Ghana.
I see. So the point is that the extradition hearing will take a different form, even though it is a matter of interest for this particular immigration issue or immigration case that he is having to answer for because of the ICE detention. Because yesterday, that was a matter that came up in court, that to the extent that there's an extradition request, the decision on whether or not he should even be granted the bail or the bond application, and then also the April 27 hearing, they're all taking into consideration this extradition request as well, which the trial judge has asked for evidence of. So that's a matter of interest. Even though they are mutually exclusive, it's still a matter of interest in one of them, at least the immigration hearing, is it not?
Yes, again, thank you. Just as I mentioned on your sister platform, 3 News, indeed, before that hearing even came up, my legal speculation came to the fore that had indicated that once the state, through the ICE, would be arguing that Mr. Ofori-Atta had overstayed his time in the US, and even stretching the argument, they would want to bring in the extradition proceedings to the extent that he is even needed in the requesting country, that is Ghana, for him to answer alleged criminal charges leveled against him. They would want to bring in that particular the extradition proceedings to justify the reason why the court granting him stay or altering or considering an extension would not be a viable option, but it would be for the United States of America to deport him to satisfy the rule of law and also to satisfy the treaty that the United States have with Ghana. So it was never surprising to me that the officials thereof brought that particular argument, because in any way and in their legal arguments, in order to ground that Mr. Ofori-Atta has overstayed and in the necessary circumstances or in the exceptional circumstances, he ought to be brought to Ghana, they will definitely have to cite the extradition proceedings and indicate that he is a fugitive. They need to run him down legally. So when I say run him down, it doesn't mean they are just running him defamatorily, but they need to arm themselves with all the legal ammunitions that they can put out there to convince the judge why Mr. Ofori-Atta is a fugitive, why he's not, why the United States of America cannot grant him extension, and the reason why he should be brought down. Hence, the extradition proceedings. It is the reason why the judge found it considerable that the ICE team, as the prosecution would be, to furnish the judge with the necessary extradition proceedings so that it would help him convict his mind as far as the ruling of Mr. Ofori-Atta is concerned. And that is going to play a very major decision or is going to play a major contemplation in the mind of the judge in arriving at a decision as far as the ruling is concerned.
Lord Kusama, I say thank you. Thank you very much for joining us here on Ghana Tonight. He is a private legal practitioner as well as written quite extensively perfect on these matters of extradition. Now, we were showing you a video of Ken Ofori-Atta when he arrived for this virtual hearing yesterday. A number of you had commentary on the dark blue outfit that he was wearing. In fact, there's a reason for that, and the color separation of all the detainees in this detention or the detention centers by ICE. There are specific color codes for their attires that differentiates them in terms of their categories of crimes. So what the dark blue overall or the jumpsuit outfit you see kind of Ofori-Atta, the former finance minister, wearing there, is the level 1. The level 1, the lowest security risk. So he is part of the category of the lowest security risk detainees. He's not one that the detention center really worries about. It's one of the lowest. And then the next is the bright orange. There's the level 2. They are the medium security risk. And then the level 3 is the dark red, which is the highest security risk. So in the Immigration and Customs Enforcement Services Processes Centers and the contract detention facilities, that's the CDFs, detainees are assigned color-coded uniforms and wristbands based on their security classification level to manage risk and movement. So if you see that outfit, that explains exactly what is going on, really, with the finance minister, or the former finance minister, Kenneth Nanaya Ofori-Atta. So that's what you have in there. There's more of this you can find on 3news.com. But coming up next here on Ghana Tonight, a matter of bread and butter issues, poverty, as against the national development indicators we're seeing. The latest poverty report, that's what's coming up next, shows fewer Ghanaians struggled with basic needs in 2025. That's the third quarter of 2025. So we're going to give you a bit more detail on it, so you have a clear indication of what we're talking about. In the multidimensional poverty index in Ghana declined from 23.9% in the first quarter of 2025 to 21.9%. That's a 2 percentage point drop by the third quarter. That's according to the latest multidimensional poverty index report released by the Ghana Statistical Service. This means that multidimensional poverty in Ghana went down from about 24 out of every 100 people in early 2023 to about 22 out of every 100 people by the middle of the year. So you should understand this. So if you take 100 Ghanaians as of the third quarter of 2025, by the Ghana Statistical Service data, 22 out of the 100 Ghanaians were multidimensionally poor. Now, in simple terms, fewer people were struggling with basic needs like education, health, living conditions as the year progressed. In fact, let's take a listen to the government station to give us a bit more context into what we're reading. Dr. Al-Hassan Idrisu spoke earlier today. Take a look.
Households headed by the unemployed actually recorded the highest poverty, reaching 35.6% in quarter 3 of 2025 from 31.9% in quarter 2. So those who are not working, the poverty rates are very high. We are talking about 35.6% in quarter 3. If you compare this to those who are in the private informal sector, they also recorded very high poverty rates, but they were below, around 22%. If you look at the data, you would see that Greater Accra is actually around 9%, between 8 to 9%, more specifically. So it's lower. And then if you take Western region, 18%. Now, the point I was trying to make there by saying that if you take the two regions, they are under 20%. Because the national average is around 21.9%.
Well, so that's a government situation there. But if we track the trend right from the first quarter of 2024, because then that tells a story. And we saw the multidimensional index actually rise, meaning that there are a lot more people who were categorized as multidimensionally poor in the second quarter of 2024. So it's about 28.5%. That's the highest we've had, at least over the last almost 2 years now. But then if you see right from the second quarter of 2024, there's been a consistent decline. We maintained between 2024 third quarter, 2024 fourth quarter, the multidimensional index was 24.9%. And that meant that if you take 100 people, 100 Ghanaians, you have almost 25 of them who are multidimensionally poor across all levels of education, access to food, and then all the others that would underline conditions of living, and then also what do you talk about the living conditions of people. But then if you look at 2025, we've seen a consistent decline right from the first quarter to the third quarter. There's the latest data from the Ghana Skills Service. 23.9 is what we started the first quarter year 2025 with, and we've seen a consistent decline from then till now when we're talking about 21.9. The percentage drop in terms of the decline analysis between 2025 second quarter and 2025 third quarter is just about 2%. That statistically would look insignificant. But then again, we must make meaning of what we are seeing in terms of the numbers, the statistics of 23.1% down to 21.9%, because then it talks about human beings. If we're seeing inflation go down, we're seeing a monetary policy rate also being reduced, we're seeing as well fuel prices decline. All of those are components that influences the cost of living. So you suspect that all things being equal, that would influence the standard of living of people, including how the various social interventions, the livelihood empowerment against poverty, LEAP, also helps people out of the bracket of poverty. But Alfred Appiah is a data scientist. Alfred is joining us on Zoom right now for a quick conversation. Alfred, thank you for joining us here on Ghana Tonight. Let's make sense of this. This almost, 2 percentage point drop in the multi-dimensional poverty rate. I mean, statistically, it looks almost negligible. But how important or essential is this for understanding how the lives of people have improved over the period under review?
Absolutely, yeah. Household welfare, and I think we've heard so far about a lot of the headline numbers around the macroeconomic stability that were talked about last year, and that was achieved last year, right? So I think it's important that even through that, Stat Service also tracks different things, like we know there's unemployment and there's also like food insecurity, right? So there are some certain people that are, and these are the group that are typically in the triple declined. So as of Q4 2024, that percentage was about 2.1%, and then by Q3 2025, that has dropped to about 1.5%. So I would say that is also very
important indeed, and also that bit about how all that this impacts on the household welfare. You touch on it briefly. I want us to get into it because based on the Ghana Skills Service, the government statisticians data, household welfare we rather saw not too good indicators, because we've seen household welfare rather rise from 31.9% to 35%, because what that meant was that between the second quarter 2025 and the third quarter of 2025, you had a lot more households not having enough to take care of their welfare or their well-being, and that's quite troubling. So I want us to draw down and disaggregate the data to the household welfare beyond the index, the headline index that we're seeing the decline.
Yeah, I think it's definitely important to see the decline in multidimensional poverty. And just to backtrack a little bit, we know that poverty is generally measured with monetary levels. So there is the international poverty line, which is about $3 per day per person. That is set by the World Bank. And then anybody that is below that poverty line is considered to be poor. Multidimensional poverty, what that does, it expands that definition to now look at deprivation. So we're looking at access to health, we're looking at living conditions, we're looking at education and employment, and those are very important factors. And so just saying that, especially because so far a lot of the discussions have been about the macroeconomics, just seeing some sneak peek, getting some sneak peek through the multidimensional poverty into what is happening at the micro level is definitely very important. It's also a good news story to see that there has been that decline in multidimensional poverty. It is continuing a trend that was happening in 2024. It's important to see that trend continues even as the macro environment stabilizes. And so with one of the other things that I think is important to see is also this so-called triple threat, which is essentially the share of the population that are unemployed, that are multidimensionally poor, and also food insecure. So we've also seen that between 2024 and 2025, there has been a decline in that proportion, and that's very important. And we know how household welfare issues are very important, and it's important to see that the households are generally better off than they were in 2024 in terms of these poverty measures.
I see. And because even though we've seen the headline multidimensional index rate reduced by almost 2%, there is the household welfare that has not seen the corresponding reduction. We've rather seen an increase in the cost measure for household welfare, which is also one that the government association himself raised concerns about. How should all of this influence economic policy interventions so as to see a corresponding reduction, especially in the household welfare, so that households can be able to meet their welfare needs appreciably?
In terms of how we sustain that, we have to go back to the contributions, right? So health is one of the significant. In health, here we are looking at nutrition. We're also looking at access to health insurance. And then also we are looking at living conditions, access to electricity, the water that people are using. And so from a policy standpoint, it's important that the government continues, to expand access to health insurance so that we can improve access to the healthcare system. And then also employment is an important part of the multidimensional poverty. We know that from the labor force survey, there has been some progress that have been made in terms of employment, but there's still a lot to be done because youth unemployment is still significantly high. And so it's important that even as we have seen these progress in the multidimensional poverty, the work should continue, especially, even as the government tries now to roll out some of its flagship programs like the 24-hour economy. That becomes very important in trying to address some of the employment challenges that the country or the youth in general face. And so through those, I think we'll be able to continue to bring down these numbers. But I think, overall, it's a good news report. There's still significant regional disparities when it comes to poverty, but it's good to see the progress that has been made. And we all hope that that progress continues.
Alfred, appreciate you for this. Alfred appears a data scientist and also a public policy analyst. Thank you for joining us here on Ghana Tonight. We're going to go for this quick break. When we're back, we'll have a conversation on the latest development with the forward track of Ghana Gold Board and the partnership with the Gold Coast refinery. How impactful will this be, the gains and the areas that policy analysts want Gold Board and by essentially government to take caution? as we indicated, that's coming up next. The Ghana Gold Board has signed a gold refining agreement with Gold Coast Refinery. So yesterday, on Tuesday, January 20, in what is said to be a major step towards deepening value addition within Ghana's gold sector. This has been met by some policy analysts raising specific areas that they believe that as much as this is a good development, it must also serve as an area of caution for the forward movement and implementation of this particular agreement going forward. I want to take a listen to Sami Jemfi, who is the CEO of Gold Board, at the signing ceremony yesterday. Take a look.
What this agreement means is that up to 1 ton of gold that is exported by Gold Board every week will not be exported in its raw form, but will be refined to minimum purity of 99.5%. Another exciting thing about this agreement is that every bar of gold that will be refined by Gold Coast Refinery and exported will bear a hallmark that will have Gold Coast Refinery, Ghana Gold Board, the Ghana Standards Authority, and the Bank of Ghana's emblems. The excuses from our big brothers in the large-scale sector must stop. We must start from somewhere. They cannot continue to refine their gold in refineries in Europe while refineries in Ghana continue to suffer.
So that's Sami Jemfi there, and this has been lauded by a number of persons who have an understanding of how this particular policy will work playing out, and the matter of adding value to our natural resources, in fact, which is another part of the Gold Board's mandate, which they're having to fulfill. But this is what we do know, the publicly available data on the Gold Coast Refinery, this particular institution that has entered into this partnership with Gold Board. The primarily owned by Eurojet, but recently the Ghana Gold Board acquired a 15% free carried interest for the state. So it is not one that is going to be like a full-blown sort of interest that we do not have an interest in as a country. So this is it. And then also the established in 2016 subsidiary of Eurojet Group holds a major ownership. And then we've got this 15% free carried interest. Mr. Joe Jackson is CEO of Delex Finance and financial analyst. Mr. Jackson, this component, that it comes in as some strategic and good, as it were, development, taking into consideration that there is already some interest that the state has in the same institution that Gold Board has entered into this partnership with, is it not?
Well, first of all, I would very cautiously applaud the Gold Board. You see, bottom line is this: if we are able to add value to our gold internally, it increases the share that comes to us. It increases employment. Listen, on the surface, there's nothing that can be faulted. This is a good idea, and we applaud. The reason why I'm cautious is this: there have been repeated issues with this Gold Board, and the issues we are all asking for greater accountability and transparency. The announcement is great, but what I'd like to know is at least the highlights and the details of the agreement and why this production gold refinery decided to give what they call the free carried interest, which means it gave the government of Ghana a portion of profits without the government paying anything. If that's all there is to it, that's even another reason for applauding the Gold Board for negotiating a share of the refinery proceeds without paying anything. But again, because of all the issues that have gone on, it would be good for the Gold Board to tell us a little bit more. These are the highlights of the agreement between Gold Board, who is for us, and the refinery, and for us to, if need be, just say, well done, good work, or question if there are areas in which we don't have enough transparency and clarity. But on the surface, it's an excellent thing and you can't fault it.
And in fact, you talk about that demand for further and better detail, but you look at the IMF's own Fifth Review report as well as the Gold Board's own mandate. This value addition, which they are on now, is one critical part of their mandate, is it not? The refinery value addition, taking into consideration the fact that India, and we understand the UAE, Dubai specifically, were the major recipients of our gold that were exported, over 98% as of last year.
Listen, let me give you comparative statistics. If you go to Botswana, where they produce a lot of diamonds, by just refining the diamonds in-house, they increase their percentage of the share of proceeds, of the net proceeds, from below 20% to over 50%. It's excellent. And if that's what we're going to be able to do in Ghana, it is good, it is excellent. But let's have the highlights so that we may applaud you even more and say, well done, Gold Board.
But then you look at the economic impact as well and the direct benefits that this particular development would have, while you ask for the further and better details, Ms. Jackson.
Well, it's straightforward. One of the challenges of this economy is that we don't retain enough value. The Gold Board came in and became the game changer, helping us retain value. Now, they moved to the next level when they're not only retaining value by being in charge of, by adding, refining and adding value to what is done. That, honestly, it's a game changer. And if this is done and everything is as it has appeared to, we ought to applaud the Gold Board in the matters of the economy for at least taking one step towards changing the Gaggisberg economy that we've been complaining about. And remember that this Gaggisberg economy is the economy where all we do is to dig and export. Dig and export. This time we dig, we refine, and we push out.
Oh, Joe Jackson, thank you very much for joining us. He's the CEO of Daylight Finance, financial analyst. But before we go, just about a little over an hour ago, we got notice from the US, that is the Citizenship and Immigration that's unit, the website, put this there. And a number of you have been commenting on it. This came in just a little over an hour ago. You see 23 minutes, but it's just almost an hour and 30 minutes. A Ghanaian alien convicted of credit card fraud came to our Columbus, Ohio office looking for immigration benefits. He tried to hide his criminal past, but officers unveiled the truth. So the U.S. Immigration and Customs Enforcement, ICE, arrived to take him into custody. So there's another Ghanaian in ICE custody as of almost 2 hours ago. So this is the latest has come through from the Citizenship and Immigration Services of the United States. ICE has another Ghanaian in their custody as of almost 2 hours ago. We don't have the name of this gentleman, and that's why if you look at the commentary under this post by the U.S. Citizenship and Immigration Services, some say he may be of another nationality than Ghanaian, but then they have authenticated the identity of this gentleman we're talking about, and they're describing him as a Ghanaian alien convicted of credit card fraud. Came to their Columbus, Ohio office looking for immigration benefits. Well, the benefit for him now is that he's in the coolers of ICE, unfortunately. But we'll have more of this on 3news.com. On behalf of the team, we do appreciate your company. Join us same time tomorrow for another conversation. I am Ofori-Atta. Have a good night.
Ghana